Welcome to Spare Talk. Today is October 28th, 2024. This is Rod Weaver. I'm bringing you another episode of the This Day in Bowling History, and we'll get right to it. We got a lot to cover today. The headline from the Richmond Times-Dispatch from 1979 says, Roth over $100,000 third time. And the article starts, Mark Roth last week enhanced his claim to being considered the finest bowler in tenpins today as he became the first pro to surpass the $100,000 mark in earnings for 3 straight years. In beating the accomplishment of Earl Anthony, who topped the $100,000 list in 1975 and 76, Roth captured the $85,000 Kessler Classic in Greenwood, Indiana. His $11,000 prize upped this year's earnings to $106,617. With 3 terms remaining on the schedule, he has a chance to erase the record of $134,500 he set last year. Roth overcame Joe Berardi 226-200 in the Kessler final, striking in the last 5 frames to come back from a 22-pin deficit. It's noteworthy to point out that during that period in time, for a 2-year stretch around 1979, Mark Roth won 15 PBA tournaments. That's quite an accomplishment. From the year 1906 in the Baltimore Sun, the headline says, Bowling of the Week, efforts made to increase 10-pin play. And the article starts, Bowling for the week was up to its usual standard. All the alleys are taxed to their utmost. Considerable talk is going around relative to 10-pins. A number of the bowlers are beginning to realize that duckpins are displacing the old game and that heroic measures must be adopted to prevent the big pin game from fading away. The formation of the Eastern Bowling League has had a good effect and is primarily responsible for the renewed interest now being demonstrated. Mr. Louis Trishman, proprietor of Trishman Bowling Alleys, is anxious to form a 10-pin league and will call a meeting at his alleys for this coming Friday night, which last year's bowlers in his 10-pin league and others who desire to play this season will attend. From the Patriot News from 1991, duckpin bowling fans want the popular game to replace jousting as Maryland's official sport. Duckpin bowling great Toots Barger, the first woman of the Maryland Sports Hall of Fame, will join other fans of the kitschy sport tomorrow to start a petition drive calling for the change. The modified version of 10-pin bowling uses softball-sized bowling balls and shorter pins. It's played by thousands more Marylanders than the state sport, jousting duckpin advocates say. I'm not going to say anything against jousting, but very few people participate in it, and it's a very expensive sport even to get started in, said Bill Hunt of the Baltimore-based National Duckpin Bowling Congress. Jousting was made the state sport in 1962. Modern-day jousters use a lance to spear a ring hung on a string. From the country of England, from the year 1961, the headline is just American bowling. 10-pin bowling, an American game similar to Skittles, which has caught on in other parts of this country, is to be introduced to Taunton. An American company is to spend £3,500,000 on 14 bowling centers in the West Country, including one at Taunton. Another report is that a Plymouth businessman, David Maxwell, who heads Maxwell Land Investments, plans to spend £1 million building bowling alleys in the West Country. Again, Taunton is included. So far, no sites have been chosen in Taunton, and a town council spokesman said that not a word had been heard about the center. And from still outside of the United States, from Sydney, Australia. This is in the Sydney Morning Herald from the year 1983. Bowling, a feature of alternative Olympics. 10-pin bowling is one of 24 sports in the World Games scheduled for London from July 25th to August 4th, 1985 as an alternative to the Olympic Games. None of the sports, which include karate, motocross, netball, racquetball, water skiing, and speedway, are in the Olympic program, although some, like 10-pin bowling, have gained Olympic recognition. More than 1,800 competitors from 65 countries are expected to enter, and there are sure to be Australian 10-pin bowlers involved. In the World Games held in Santa Clara, California 2 years ago, Chris Batson and Ruth Gerster combined to win gold in the mixed doubles event. The article continues, and apparently they provided some bowling tips or pointers. It says, following on from last week's column, here are a few more tips on combating pressure in 10-pin competition. Many times a bowler gets himself in a close finish by shooting well, by having feet in tempo and staying down at the release point. Then, when the chips are down, he forgets all about the form that got him there and instead bounds up to the foul line in a wild pursuit of pin chasing and an apparent attempt to get it over with. A player should concentrate even harder on those key points when under pressure, as those were the reasons he reached the situation in the first place. The minimum a person can do to improve their mental outlook in a pressure situation is to recall the most current or dramatic of experiences of performing well under pressure. This will ensure that the player knows there is a reasonable chance of success. It is best to eliminate all negative thoughts as if success is inevitable. If you must have a strike, the surest way is to go for it, hitting the pocket solidly. Needing a mark is no different, as the surest way is to strike. Trying to leave an easy spare is an easy way to lose. If it comes down to the last game, and you need to shoot 50 pins over your average, then again, the best advice is to attack. Don't be afraid to try a new ball, a different line, or approach speed, as you have nothing to lose. However, when the last game requires an average score, stay with your most dependable style under pressure and attack as required. Here's another item from 1958 from the Evening Star, written by Rod Thomas. A brand new star is twinkling in the 10-pin sky, meaning Anne May, hitherto unknown to bowling fame, but now quite distinctive as the only woman in the history of the sport here to reach 700 for a 3-game series. Moreover, she came within one shot of marking up a perfect game, and in doing so, established an all-time record for the area with a tally of 290. It all happened under peculiarly appropriate circumstances. Miss May, a Pentagon stenographer, was bowling in a sweepstakes that preceded a meeting at Alexandria 10 Pins, in which was organized the 600 Club. For eligibility, a woman must shoot 600 or better in official competition. The 290 followed games of 231 in which Miss May strung 7 strikes, and 179 in which she might have been affected by the thrill of the 231. To start the 290, she knocked of a 2-pin spare, then put together 11 consecutive strikes. Was she nervous at any time? My, yes, Miss May said today, but mostly on the last ball, and I almost missed. It looked as though it wouldn't come up enough. The hit was a trifle light, but I was fortunate to have enough stuff on the ball to scatter the pins. Miss May's previous best series was a 602 rolled last year in the Pioneer League at Alexandria 10 pins. She came to Washington in 1951 from Elmira, New York. Her current league averages are 171 in the Pioneer League, 165 in the Shirley Bowl Thursday night, and 155 in the mixed maulers at Roslyn. The area records she toppled were a 683 series and 256 game rolled several years ago by Olive Marsh at Roslyn. Here's an article from 1933 that's noteworthy from the Evening Sun. And the headline says, Miss Sims is a national champion and city record holder in duck pins, but 10 pins is her favorite bowling game. This is by Ralph Brackbill. Back about 4 weeks ago, Alice Sims, an attractive miss not long past the voting age, stepped up to the foul line in the Recreation Major Girls League roll-off and cracked the city duck pin record for 3 games. She launched a murderous assault on the Maples to rip off games of 120, 143, and 143 for a 406 set, the highest in local history. Remembering how at Hartford last spring Miss Sims had punched out a decisive 142 game at a crucial moment to help the Recreation girls bag their second national championship in 6 years, and thrilled by her latest feat, her league mates hurried to congratulate her. Alice graciously accepted the felicitations with thanks, 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 then added, but I still like 10 pins better. That remark caught those within hearing unaware. Here was a full-fledged star, a national champion, and city record holder in duck pins confessing to 10 pins, a rival game, as her first love in bowling. But Miss Sims has her reasons. I do like 10 pins better, Alice said. Alice said the other day, why? Because the breaks are truer. In 10 pins you get what you hit. In duck pins you are likely to come up with all kinds of weird splits. Once in duck pins I hit the head pin 21 times in a row and didn't get one single spare break. On another occasion I saw Margaret Holliday, a teammate, hit into the pocket 27 straight times without getting a break. Such things are impossible in 10 pins. If you hit in the pocket, you at least get a spare chance, frequently a strike. And that is just as it should be. Here's another item from England, from the Sports Argus from 1967. Well, the headline goes, 100 million watching, and the follow-up article is, a big breakthrough. That's how I see the news that Eurovision will be beaming the finals of the International Masters Championship at Paris on November 30. It is the biggest TV coverage yet of a 10-pin event and could go a long way towards bolstering the image of the sport throughout Europe, particularly in Britain. To date, 7 countries have said they will be taking the film from Paris, which means that already a potential audience of around 100 million people could be watching the final stages. 10-pin officials and managements are constantly looking for ways to improve the sport's image to the non-10-pin public. Paris could be a golden chance to boost their case. From the Winona Daily News from the year 1949, and it's a feature, Behind the 8 Ball by Augie Karcher. Never mind about the headpin, boys. Get the kingpin and the headpin will take care of itself. That's a statement made by Sam Karpf, first secretary of the American Bowling Congress from 1895 to 1907, and is used as evidence by Ed Steffs of the Winona Bowling Association that the kingpin is the number 5 maple and not the number 1. Steffs says he and Frank Hammernick were in St. Paul when Karpf made the remark to a group of bowlers in 1910. Steffes also submits a 1938 issue of the ABC Bulletin which carries this item. Even though a great many bowlers apparently believe all that is necessary to bring about a strike is to have the ball contact the head pin, we caution those who wish to eventually roll an effective ball that it is necessary for the ball to carry out the 5-pin properly, the 5-pin being in fact the kingpin of the set. Unless the 5-pin is carried correctly, no great number of strikes can be expected. Well, we hope that ends that. So apparently the controversy about what was the kingpin, whether it was the head pin or the 5-pin, was skewed from the 19th century to the 20th century early on. And I guess this article just sets it back to the way it should be, or to the way it was originally intended. Here's a short snippet from the publication called The Day from the year 1966. 876 10-pin series. The highest 10-pin series ever rolled in Wisconsin and the second highest in the U.S. bowling annals was posted at Sheboygan by Carl Wilsing Tuesday night. He bowled 298, 300, and 278 for 876, a total topped only by Willie Brand of Lockport, New York, who bowled 886 in 1939. Wilsing, 56 years old, had 32 strikes out of 35 balls. From the St. Louis Post-Dispatch from the year 1993. Article by John J. Archibald. Pete Weber shows he's worthy of Hall. Some years soon, Professional Bowlers Association members are going to have to take a deep breath, shake their heads in disbelief, and elect St. Louian Pete Weber to the Hall of Fame. That will mark the completion of Weber's long trip back, one painful day at a time, from the PBA dungeon. Weber, who seemed sometimes to be spending as much time on suspension as he was on the PBA active list, has been among the pros model citizens for several years. That period roughly parallels the time he has been married to the former Kim Schultheis, who is said to have taken a no-nonsense approach to his old lifestyle. Weber's recent victory in the Japan Cup, where 16 of the top PBA pros competed with a similar number of Japanese pros, increased his total of PBA championships to 21. That puts him number 7 in number of titles. The only non-Hall of Fame member ahead of him is Mike Albee with 22. Albee, 33 years old, is sure to be named to the PBA Hall of Fame soon. To immortalize an athlete while he is at the peak of his game may seem a little absurd, but the PBA already has shown that age is not a factor. Joe Berardi was 35 and had won only 8 individual titles when he was elected in 1990. St. Louis and Nelson Burton Jr. was 36 when the PBA inducted him. In Tokyo, Weber, 31 years old, led the qualifying by 158 pins and then walloped Brian Voss 276 to 227 in the stepladder finals, which were said to have been watched by 38 million Japanese TV viewers. Voss had eliminated Japan's Yasutomo Banai. The $39,000 prize pushed Weber into second place on the PBA prize list with $145,000, although he is more than $100,000 behind 7-time champion Walter Ray Williams Jr. Both bowlers picked up many thousands more from manufacturers whose equipment, that is balls, shoes, gloves, shirts, etc., they used on TV. From the Pittsburgh Press from the year 1990, the big headline is Memory Lanes. I guess that's a feature of the paper. And it says, Rubber Band Duck Pins, a sport that appears to be in final frame. Anyone who drives on Wayman Road in Whitehall notices this building. It is a 37-foot domed atrium with white and green neon lights. Next door is a dull red brick building, a leftover from the 1950s. Princess Lanes, the larger building, is a bowling establishment. It has more than 40 color televisions, computerized monitors with automatic scorekeeping, a restaurant, and a bar. The Village, the small building, also is a house of bowling. It has 24 lanes, a few vending machines, and one television, which sits on a light blue plastic chair in the middle of the lobby. One significant difference between the two buildings accounts for the difference in sizes, lighting, wealth, the works. The Village has rubber band duckpin bowling. It is a game that saw its peak in the 1950s, its decline in the 1960s, and probably its death in the 1990s. Every Thursday, Thelma Schaefer, 70, and her friends from the Friendship Bowling League meet at the Village Lanes. Duckpin bowling is more than a game to this group. Bowling is a social event, a meeting place, a chance to cling to part of a once prosperous past, and bowling is a passion. Their game is rubber band duckpins, an unusual and rare offshoot of the extremely popular 10-pin bowling. Duckpin alleys once flourished in the Pittsburgh area, but by the turn of the century they are likely to be as rare to these parts as a blast furnace. But in the meantime, the duckpin loyalists plan to play out the inevitable string. "We're all senior citizens," said Schaefer. "We used to have about 50 people in our league, but now we're down to about 20. When they started putting 10 pins on television, everybody started bowling 10 pins. They thought that was the biggest thing. A lot of people have lost their spouses," she said, while pointing to different members. "You see Ray over there? He lost his wife. Teresa lost her husband. But they keep coming." On this particular Thursday night, Herb Schaefer, Thelma's husband, is bowling for the first time since having heart surgery 2 years ago. His walk is barely more than a shuffle. Schaefer is slim, and his smile seems frozen on his face. It widens when one of the gang yells, "You're up, Herb." Schaefer bowled 10 pins before the surgery, but prefers duck pins now. "I'm getting old, and that big ball can take its toll on you." Wilbur Ammons is Executive Secretary of the American Rubber Band Duckpin Bowling Congress, the governing body of duckpin bowling. He operates from his home in Jeannette. According to Ammons, during the 1960s, there were 79 bowling houses that had duckpins and 111 leagues sanctioned by the ARDBC. Today there are 18 alleys and 50 sanctioned leagues. Ammons said, "Even the leagues are smaller, having dropped from an average of 50 to 60 bowlers to 30. 5 of the remaining 18 duckpin establishments are in the Johnstown area. Jeannette, Monessen, Donora, Latrobe, Glassport, McKeesport, Wilkinsburg, and Uniontown each have one. The Village is the lone duckpin center in the South Hills. The Fraternal Order of the Eagles in McKees Rocks has 12 duckpin lanes. The Pittsburgh Athletic Association in Oakland has the only sanctioned duckpin lanes in the city. The other 2 duckpin establishments are in Cumberland, Maryland. And we'll finish with somewhat of an extended article from the Ottawa Journal on 5-pin bowling, but it actually applies to any small pin game, I would say. It says, "How to bowl 5 pins." To get from your starting point to the spot where you'll release the ball, just in front of the foul line, requires a certain number of steps. Exactly how many steps you need depends on your personal style of delivery. It can vary from 1 step to 5 steps. A 3-step approach and a 4-step approach are by far the most common, however. These 2 approaches are used by 90% of bowlers. The 1-step, 2-step, and 5-step approaches are unorthodox. Still, some good bowlers do use them. In addition, some of these approaches may be best for handicapped people many of whom are able to bowl well. Find the number of steps that seems most natural to you, then use this type of approach. Only in this way can you develop the proper rhythm of movement so important to good bowling. Where should you stand? After deciding the number of steps you are going to take, here's how to find how far back from the foul line you should start off. You want to complete your delivery with your forward foot about 6 inches in front of the foul line. So stand with your back towards the pins and place your heels 6 inches from the foul line. Then, with an imaginary ball in your hand, go through the entire delivery, taking the number of steps you plan to use and sliding at the end. Do everything just as if you were bowling a real ball toward the pins instead of toward the benches. Notice where your forward toe stops. This will be your starting point when you actually bowl. You can fix this spot in your mind by noticing where it is located relative to the standard marker dots that are spotted in the 3 lines from 12 to 16 feet back of the foul line. A more exact way of fixing this spot, however, is to check where it is in relation to the balls on the return rack. For example, you may start out opposite the 3rd or 4th or 5th ball on the rack. Be sure not to try the experiment with a real ball, that is the one regarding bowling towards the benches. A number of display case windows have been shattered by bowlers who have done this. Almost certainly the ball will slip out of your hand, perhaps injuring someone. But even though you are not using a ball, include all the motions you will have in your regular delivery. Of the 2 orthodox approaches, the 3-step is the one most popular with 5-pin bowlers and the one to try first if you are starting to bowl. In all cases, you should finish your approach with your left foot sliding forward, provided you are a right-hander. Left-handed bowlers just reverse the sequence of steps and end with their right foot forward. However, I'll interject that there are some very good wrong foot bowlers, as they call them. That is, those who, for example, roll with the right hand and slide with the right foot. But anyway, we'll continue. First step, left foot forward and give the ball its push away. Second step, right foot forward, swinging the ball smoothly backward to shoulder height. Third step, left foot forward for slide. As the arm swings forward, the right knee drops and the ball is released a few inches from the floor. Follow through with your arm. And here we are, the 4-step approach. The 4-step approach is the second most popular one with bowlers. Many 4-steppers, however, take only a half step on their first step, giving themselves more time for the push away. Then they go through the rest of the sequence as if doing a 3-step approach. This gives them a fuller push away and a longer backswing than an ordinary 3-step approach. For a full 4-step approach, however, the sequence is this: reverse if you are left-handed. First step, right foot forward and give the ball its push away. Second step, left foot forward and half the backswing is completed. Third step, right foot forward, backswing is completed. And that's all they have for that. So I think that's all for today. I think we covered a lot. Thanks for watching, and hit the subscribe button if you want to continue to see videos like this, or if you'd like to be notified. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.